Hello Dragon Ball Super family, I'm Legends Kerrick and I'm bringing you my updated cooler mill deck list that I used to go undefeated at my store championship with this week. With the arrival of some Set 14 tools, the nerfing of VJX, and the incoming 3 cost rival cooler, this deck is definitely one that you'll want to revisit. Hopping right into the deck list, for those new to the leader, it's the Set 9 cooler leader, red cooler. He's got his first autos when this on the front side, when this card attacks a leader card, you can draw one card. He has this auto whenever the power of one of your opponent's battle cards is reduced, your opponent takes the top card of their deck and places it in the drop area. And then once per turn during your opponent's turn, when the power of one of your opponent's battle cards is reduced by the skill of one of your battle cards, you can draw one card. He awakens at 4. He's just an untap one, draw one, and on the backside, his first auto upgrades to when this card attacks, draw one card. Period. His second auto remains the same whenever the power of one of your opponent's battle cards is reduced by or is decreased. Your opponent takes the top card of their deck and puts it in the drop area, and then its third auto is upgraded to now say during either player's turn when the power of your opponent's battle card is reduced by the skill of one of your battle cards, you can draw a card. So it's really cool. One unique thing about Cooler, this leader is significantly stronger if you awaken on your opponent's turn. Something that's very different than most leaders in the game. So let's hop right into this deck list. So we're going to start off with our opening check lands and something I often mulligan for, or at least keep one of. It's just the Mecha Frieza Energy Blight. It's kind of cool that he's a Frieza clan, but he's our check land. As long as you have a red-blue energy, he does come into play untapped. The fact he has his nifty auto when this card attacks, choose up to one of your opponent's battle card or leader cards or battle cards and reduce its power by minus 5k for the battle, which is pretty cool because on your backside late game this can be a card that triggers your leader just to draw a card, especially if nothing else to do with the 2 energy. But generally he's just a check land. Even if this is the only red blue card you see in your opening hand, or if you have like a different like useful red blue card and this in your opening hand, I would still charge this first simply because this deck can play off of one blue energy the entire game. It only needs the one copy of the red blue energy so that the Beerus super combo is live. Also, the other card we want to see early game is what I call Baby Frieza, or more notably Frieza Death's Embrace. This card's a 1-drop cantrip, so cantrip is when you play the card it replaces itself. So in this case, when you play this card, it draws a card. It's got an activate battle infinite times per turn. You can pay a red energy, choose up to one of your opponent's leader cards and or battle card, or sorry, leader cards or battle cards, and it gets minus 10k power for the duration of the battle. This is really cool because if you play it on turn 2, you can use one of your 2 mana to cast this card, draw a card. Then on your opponent's card, if they choose to swing and they have a battle card out, they don't play around this card, you can tap your second red energy that you have left up, and you can reduce that card's power by 10k to trigger your frontside leader's effect to draw a card. And of course, you'll probably take the damage because you're trying to get to 4 in this deck anyway, right? One of the ways that people try to stop this deck is they leave you at 5 health since you don't really play Self-Awakeners. So this Frieza is actually a great way to just make use of that turn 2. Another really cool thing is this Frieza can reduce your opponent's leader's card by 10k as well. So like if you're going for game and you just have you have a bunch of energy up, it's super late game, 5 or 6 energy, you can actually just tap all of your energy for this guy and reduce your opponent's leader into the negatives. So a lot of people, some newer players might not know that leaders can actually go into the negatives, and it's very difficult for your opponent to combo out of that attack if you do. So yeah, very cool card to keep. Also, once you play one, you don't really need to resolve like more than 2 games. You can kind of charge them after you play your first one. Sometimes I hold a second one if I plan to kill them through combat with this card, or it's just a cool way to dissuade like your opponents from killing you with battle cards as long as you have this card face up. Of course, it has no protection, so you can't really rely on this card all the time. But versus like slower decks like Hatchiyak and like Baby, it's really cool to just leave this card up, and then your opponent can't really pressure you either. Then we'll go into the Arrival core of the deck. We play 4 copies of Cooler Tyrannical Assault as the first Arrival card. He's a double strike, single red Arrival for red-blue. When this card is played, your opponent places the top card of their deck into their drop area. Then you choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and reduce their powers by 10k for the turn. That's really cool because this card will, under this leader, will have your opponent mill 3 cards just for 1 red mana, give you a 20k double strike, and probably draw you a card if you're going to play on your opponent's turn. It's actually just an extraordinarily efficient card, obviously made for this leader. Our second Arrival piece is this Hercule and Majin Buu, Friends Forever, and he's probably the only reason why we need 1 blue mana in this deck. He rivals for 1 blue mana, red blue. When this card is played, you draw a card. Awesome already. Then choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, and it gets minus 10k power for the duration of the turn. And then at the end of this turn, you can choose up to one of your red or blue battle cards in play. Other than this card, and return it to your hand. So you can return Coolers to your hand. You can return this Freeze if you need to draw again. You can return like Topo later in the deck. So it's really cool. One of the best plays like for your Awakened turn is if you can find a way to rival this before you're awakened, one of these before you're awakened, draw for your leader effect on the front side, then awaken on your opponent's turn to untap the mana again off of your awaken, and then spend the same mana to rival the second card, drawing again off your leader. Uh, that's probably the most value you can get out of awaken. So if you end up burning your awaken on your turn just to draw a card, it actually does nothing for you in like relatively. And then of course to trigger our awakens, the reason why we play multicolor, we play 4 copies of Beerus Divine Obliterators. Beerus Divine Obliterator, simply super combo if your leader is red or blue, and we are a red leader that moonlights as a blue leader. When you play this super combo from your hand, or when you use this card in a combo from your hand, it's very important that it says from your hand. You may choose up to one of your blue-red multicolor energies and untap it. So of course, like this card facilitates these cards to arrive, and that's kind of the heart of the deck, right? And when I was talking about that play earlier, like you'll have your 2 mana tapped going like for your awakening turn. You'll combo with the Beerus, right? You'll untap your red blue. You'll tap your blue mana to rival the Hercule. You'll draw 2 cards, one for Hercule, one for leader. Then you'll awaken, untapping your Frieza again. And since this is still in your combo area, you just tap your red now, and you'll rival the Cooler, and you'll draw another card. Or if you have another Boo, you can rival the Boo. And that at the end of that turn, you can pick up the Cooler for future rival turns, rival plays. So a lot of cool tricks you can do with this Beerus. Obviously, the deck relies on you seeing a Beerus to play the game. So if you do see a Beerus in your opening hand, and you already have like this stuff, I would probably keep the Beerus because the deck's kind of unplayable without it. And I'd probably keep the Coolers, either a Cooler or a Majin Buu in your opening hand, just so you have access to a rival play. Since the rest of the deck passive these cards are just like defensive cards to hold out the game. And then this is part of our rival package for now. We play this combo attack Cooler. It's got this activate battle for 1 blue. The blue makes it kind of difficult to play, but activate battle, you can choose one of your red or blue Frieza clan cards. So it's this dude, your Cooler. Those are your real targets in the deck. Other than this named card, combo attack Cooler, and return it to your hand to play this card. Then it has this auto once per turn. When this card attacks, you can combo with the red-blue multicolor card from your drop area. So like once you've already used your Beerus, you can attack with it, combo with the Beerus from the drop area. You would not get its effect because it's from the drop area, and then you can arrival this back out. So one of the nifty ways you can add damage to this deck is you can swing with the Cooler Tyrannical Assault, and then on your next swing, say you swing with the leader, you can pay your blue mana, return this Cooler to your hand to play this card. After this attack resolves, you can attack with Cooler, combo with the Beerus that you used earlier in the game, and then arrival the same Cooler you just return to mill another 3 from your opponent, ideally. A lot of cool interactions with this card, so it effectively functions as 4 more copies of this. However, with the introduction of the new 5-drop Cooler that arrivals for 3 mana, we'll probably end up cutting this card. I'd rather just see an arrival Cooler than see this card in my opening hand. This card oftentimes is just used for 0-5k combo. You can rarely even charge this card, so I'm not a huge fan. Then also part of our rival package and starting to delve into our defensive packages, 4 copies of Senzu Bean. Because we do have that 1 blue mana, we can use Senzu Bean to untap a red mana so that we can rival the Cooler, leave our blue mana up for more plays later that turn, also making our leader a 20k super big in this what I like to call King Vegeta focused format. Moving into our defensive package, we will start with our turn 3 behemoth of a card, Jiren Legend of Universe 11. Jiren of Universe 11 has this auto. When your opponent plays a battle card or a Unison card, a lot of people forget about the Unison part, you may choose that card and it gets minus 10k power for the turn. If you choose to use this auto on that card, you negate this auto for the rest of the turn. So that's really cool. Obviously, if you choose a battle card, your leader will force your opponent to mill 1 card off the top of their deck. If you choose a Unison card, that Unison card is probably not getting an attack through that turn, which is really important for this leader because it can't interact with leaders and Unisons very well, but it can interact with battle cards very freely. It's got a +1 that just says activate main. This card gains double strike for the turn. So it's really cool because it lets you check Unisons for 20k double strike. If you really think you have to win by combat because you're playing against like VJX or your opponent just was playing really willy-nilly with their life, then yeah, the 20k double strike can be relevant. Otherwise, the other big thing about this card, other than the fact that it's a 20k Unison, so your opponent has to commit a lot of cards to clear it, is has this really cool -3 activate battle. Choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and it gets -25k power for the turn. So it's really cool. It makes it really difficult for your opponent to go all in on a battle card when you have a Jiren that hasn't used its activate battle yet. And to pair with our Jiren for more of our defensive cards, we play 4 copies of Yamcha Merciless Barrage. Yamcha Merciless Barrage is like we play 4 even though we have a 3-drop Unison because once we have our 3-drop Unison, we want to be using this both on our turn and our opponent's turn if they play battle cards. Plus, it's also one of the. Correct me if I'm wrong for anybody watching this video, but it's probably the only red answer we have in the game to Fu Shrouded in Mystery. So like when they play Fu on window 2, we can respond with Yamcha Merciless Barrage. It's gonna come in, reduce Fu by 15k. Your leader's gonna force him to mill 1, and now Fu's just a 15k double strike, right? Like, but so that's another reason we play it in case we play against Baby. That's like how they beat us, or Hatchek. That's how they can beat us. Otherwise, those decks are really free for us to beat. Um, so yeah, so Yamcha, you don't draw off of it because it's not a battle card. It's like a really weird way to rule it, but it's not a battle card when it's using its counterplay skill. So your opponent will still mill 2 if you hit 2 battle cards, but you will not draw 1 off your leader. Something important to note. Otherwise, after that, it's just like a 5k attack or 15k attacker, or more often than not, it's just a 5k combo because most of the time we're not killing by combat in this deck. And then another Unison support card that we play are 4 full copies of Wolfang Fist, especially with King Vegeta running around. Just a 1 mana -15k to interrupt your opponent's bond is really big. Wolfang Fist, really cool card. Once you have your Unison out, it costs 0 mana. It's a counter attack if your leader card is mono red, which obviously we are. You can choose the attacking battle card or leader card, and it gets ignoring barrier, and it gets -15k power for the battle. It's really cool. Obviously, in tandem with your leader, your opponent mills the top card of their deck. I did play this card at less copies for a while, but then I realized this card is just too useful to have, especially once you develop your Jirison. You want your Jiren Unison that on that turn, if you don't have a Beerus, you want as many free play cards as you can. And if you don't manage to develop Jiren on 3, your deck is significantly worse. So moving away from Jiren, we're gonna go towards the like hard defensive package. We play 2 copies of Topo Righteous Aid. Yes, aggression is still one of your weak spots for this deck, although there are more tools now to deal with aggression. Topo still is a great 2-mana card, like a turn 2 card. In case the deck you're facing is so aggressive that you can't develop Baby Frieza, this Frieza. So you can just hold up Topo instead. Or like if you just didn't see Frieza, like holding up Topo makes you feel really safe. I know the new Oceanus came out in set 14 that forces your opponent to mill, but if your opponent's an aggression like an aggro deck, they're just gonna kill you through the mill 4. Like yeah, you might be able to mill like 16 to 20 cards out of the deck, and then you have to mill them out that turn or not die because you did tap out 2 for the Oceanus. And Topo being red also comes up sometimes in those like slower matchups where you don't need a floodgate, you can just charge a Topo. So that's really cool. But yeah, Topo being able to force your opponent's hand count down, and a lot of people get desperate to attack through Topo, and if they ever develop a battle card into Topo and attack and discard 2 cards, you've absolutely won the game because now you can for free deal with that battle card using Beerus and an arrival card, and now they've actually lost so much more advantage. But Topo is very expensive at 2 mana, right? Because on turn 1, we're going to charge multicolor. On turn 2, we're going to play Frieza ideally. On turn 3, we're going to play Jiren. So Topo is really only active if we don't play on curve on 2, and if we go into 4 without any plays at all. So we're going to play him only at 2 copies. Obviously, mulligan for him if you're playing against stuff like King Vegeta, Majin Vegeta, etc. But since Topo costs too much and people like to leave us at 5 life, we're playing a full suite of Testing the Oppositions. Testing the Opposition is actually a great card in this deck. One of the few ways to beat this deck is to just attack in a Jiren once you develop Jiren. Usually by turn 3, you're at 4 or 5 life, depending on how your opponent wants to leave you. So if you can develop Jiren and then they attack in a Jiren, you can stop that first attack with Testing, and now you get a blocker to force them to go into the combo step with their next hit, which is really strong. Also, this helps you awaken from 5 to 4, and in a perfect world, this card will take you from 5 to 1, like all 4 copies of this. Also, like I said earlier, this deck does not interact with Unisons or leaders very well. So you can use Testing Opposition to negate a leader and hold up the blocker for their Unison, and then just use all of your rival tools and your Jiren and your Friezas to beat out any battle cards your opponent can play. And then probably one of my favorite cards from set 14 for this deck, and I wish I had a 4th copy, was Difference of Status. Difference of Status is a 0 mana counter attack. Spirit Boost X. The Spirit Boost part is kind of like niche. You can use it occasionally with Topo to like snipe out a really big card or to like reduce a Unison's attack. It's like not really relevant. But if your leader card is mono red, which we are, you can choose up to one of your opponent's cards, and it gets 5k power for the turn. That's huge. For 0 mana, you can minus 5k something. So even if you tap out on turn 1 for multicolor, even if you like tapped out for freezes, and so that's really cool versus King Vegeta. You can kill a baby with that. You can put Chain Attack Bardock down to 10k, so it's not a real threat. And they mill a card when you do this. It's a 0 mana mill card. But if you choose the Spirit Boost X, for every marker that you Spirit Boosted, you can choose one of your opponent's cards. It doesn't even have to be the same one you chose the first time, and it gets an additional minus 5k power for every marker you removed. So in this way, like if VJX goes for the -4 on their Unison, you can actually Spirit Boost out of your Jiren and protect yourself and just kill off that Unison, which is a really cool concept. But more importantly, for 0 mana and a single marker, you can mill 2 cards off your opponent by hitting 2 different battle cards, and then which of course sets up your other rival plays later that turn. This card is actually really cool for this deck. I really wish I owned a 4th 2 play in this deck, especially if I move forward in the format I would play for. And then the Unison before, so I have something to say about the Unison. The Unison I played, or not the Unison, the SCR. The SCR I played for the Store Championship was this extraordinarily long name, SS3 Gohanks Interdimensional Warrior, or whatever. He's cool. He's got dual attack, blocker, actually kind of relevant. His auto is really good. When this card is played, choose all of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring Bear, and they get minus 25k power for the turn, which is really cool because they'll mill 1 card for each one of those battle cards that they lost. And then he's got this +1 auto. When your opponent attacks with a battle card, you may choose that battle card, and it gets minus 25k power for the turn. So also makes your opponent mills a card, and once again, discourages attacking with your opponent killing you with battle cards. It's got this cool -4, which is why we really ended up playing this. You can -4 activate main. This card gains 50k power and triple strike for the duration of the turn. Then at the end of the turn, switch this card to active mode. So if you slam this boy on 5 mana and -4, this becomes a dual attack triple strike 40k, which is actually a really cool way to win the game through combat with this leader. Since like one of the few ways you can lose is actually the stuff that like won't let you mill them out, or stuff that's defending too hard, or like Hachiak can drag on forever. So like a double strike Unison or triple strike Unison that's a dual attack is really big in that matchup. One of the reasons I hate this card though is that you have to override your Unison or your Jiren to play this card, and that never feels good. I'm straight up. But in the current format, it's good. Like before we introduce the cooler, because this gives you the new cooler coming out, because this gives you a really cool turn 4 play. However, once we get that new cooler, that new arrival cooler is going to be a better turn 4 play, and we'll probably go back to playing Kai. The fact that Kai can stop your opponent from killing you with leaders and Unison is a really big deal in this deck. But this did win a couple matches for me during my store championship, so definitely worth looking into. But first, versus super fast decks, you have to side this card out anyway, and whereas you wouldn't have to for Kai. Going to my side deck, of course, we have our single Cyberman token for our testing the Oppos. Moving this aside. And then we'll start with 2. Is that all you've got? This is strictly for King Vegeta. It's a 1 mana red negate. You can just charge mono red turn 1 and then just charge blue red turn 2 if you really need to. But it's a 1 mana red negate. If your leader card is red, negate the attack, and then you may discard a red card from your hand. If you do, choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards, and they get minus 15k power for the turn, for the duration of the turn, which is insane. Versus King Vegeta, you can clear 2 whole battle cards with this. Your opponent mills 2 cards because you're a leader, and you negated a different attack, right? Like if your opponent's board is set up and you go into turn 3 or 4 and you have this card in your hand versus King Vegeta, kind of just shuts out that matchup. This card's really great for that. If you're playing other red decks and you're struggling versus King Vegeta, this is probably the card you could consider as well. Once again, we lose to super fast decks, so a lot of our sideboard is dedicated to super fast decks. So ironically, Mach Speed Son Gohan comes in there. So like turn 2 is really important versus super fast decks, because you probably only get 2 mana, right? So you want to play a lot of cards that respawn in 2 mana or less. So like versus super fast decks, we'll take out stuff like that combo attack cooler, which is really crappy. Or like if you upgrade to the new coolers coming out, we'll take those out versus super fast decks, and we'll slide in these Mach Speed Son Gokus. It's like a pretty old set 6 or 7 card, set 7 card. Got counterplay, play this card. Permanent, if there's a multicolor card in your energy, this costs 1 less. So it really only costs 2. When you play this card, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards, and it gets minus 10k power for the turn. Super cool. And then choose a different, and then if it's your opponent's turn, you can choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards and gets minus 5k power for the turn. So you can actually choose the same card for this effect twice, and it gives that card 15k power, because it resolves the first sentence and then it'll check for the second sentence, right? So what's really cool about this card is since we're on turn 2, we're going to be unawakened, right? So if you have 2 mana up, you're going to be able to play this card. And since it's a battle card version of Yamcha, you actually will get to draw their leader. It swings back as a 15k, which is super relevant. Versus King Vegeta, you can kill a child. I shouldn't say that. You can kill one of the young invaders, and you can kill one of the what, like a Bardock that comes in after it, because it's for the turn, so you can like snipe the young invader. They played the Bardock to make it so they can get Bond or the Borgos, and now since they don't have Bond anymore, the Borgos and slash Bardock dies after. Like it's really neat. Or you can just like prevent 2 attacks from becoming like actually threatening at you because you can minus by 10k and 5k. This is also super big versus Majin Vegeta. I didn't actually play against that this weekend, but I'm just trying to think of like fast aggro decks. It's super good versus those decks as you can hit multiple attackers at once. So pretty cool. Um, and then for our like one respect to Red Broly, we decided to play 1 copy of Violent Rays, or not Red Broly, Dark Broly, and I guess Red Broly, and in some ways like Sin Shenron and stuff like that. But Violent Rays is really just there for Dark Broly, since they mill themselves a lot and they draw a lot with the cards, the effects they do use. Like you can deck out that deck really fast. You really only have to resolve one well-placed Violent Rays to win that matchup every time. And even then, most of the games when you play against that matchup, you don't even need the Violent Rays. But it was just there because I was running out of red stuff to side deck, and I didn't want to overload my side deck with like anti-aggro cards and then not be able to side things out. If I really had a choice, I'd probably keep this as Violent Rays in the future, 1 copy, or make it my 4th copy of Difference of Status. And then, of course, since we are a hand-reliant deck, we struggle versus hand control. So we played 4 copies of Deborah Ritual at hand. Deborah Ritual hand just got this auto. When this card is discarded from your hand, you can play this card for 1 mana and then draw 2. When this card is played, draw 2 cards. So it just like it like alleviates the hand destruction of like a Ribrianne hitting you, or like especially if they only hit you with a single hand card hand destruction. And you have mana up so often in this deck that like this card is very easy to play into. And then one of the other thing we lose to that is not super, like, other than super fast aggro decks, we also lose to super slow control decks. So what our answer to super slow control decks is Cooler Clan Avenger. So like Hachiyak Baby, stuff like that. If you can resolve a Cooler Clan Avenger on turn 2, 3, or 4, like any of the early turns, and you can play around their like Diabolic Parasite, then you can automatically win the game. Once you resolve this card, you can just stop attacking the leader. Now your opponent has to find a way to kill you, because all you can do is just draw and pass, draw, pass, draw, pass, and they'll keep milling at the end of their turn. So a quick overview of what this card does. It's a 2-drop red, 1 blue, barrier. Very important that it has barrier. Auto, if your leader card is a Frieza Clan card, when this card is played, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards. It gets minus 15k power for the turn. That's mostly irrelevant when you play this card because it's going to be so early. If you hit a battle card, manage to hit a battle card early on with this card, your opponent will mill 1. If you happen to be awakened and you get that effect off, which you probably will not be because you're only playing this in a control decks, then you will draw 1. It's kind of cool. But why we really play it? It's got the secondary auto. If your leader card is a Frieza Clan card, at the end of your opponent's turn, your opponent plays the top card of their deck into their drop area. So obviously for every single one of these you resolve, every single passing turn your opponent is just free milling cards. Those control decks can't even afford to commit battle cards, because since they don't actually commit enough battle cards ready to threaten you, like all of your rival and battle card hate is going to mill them out. So they're kind of stuck attacking you with Unisons and their leader, and you can just check their Unison the whole time between your leader and your battle cards, and your Jiren, of course, and then you can use the Frieza and a chair to check the leader the whole time. And it just makes those matchups super free if you can resolve one of these. If I were to play this deck in a best of 1 format, I would probably, like today, I'd probably cut out the combo attack coolers and just slide these 4 cards into the deck. That way you have a chance against those decks in the game. But yeah, that was the Set 9 Cooler deck that I used for this store championship this weekend. Ended up splitting with my teammate, and he was playing Baby in the end. But other than that, it's super fun to play. I definitely would suggest getting a lot of reps into it. Focus on learning how to set up your Awakening on your opponent's turn. Don't worry about negating early damage. You want to go to 4 anyway, unless it's critical damage, then you want to try to play around it. But if you can't play around it, you just can't play around it, right? Just get to 4 and play your game plan. This deck definitely is a thinking man's deck, and that's what makes it fun. But yeah, let me know what you think about the deck, and quick shout outs. Shout out to my team, of course, as always, making this a great environment to play and allow me to make these videos for you guys. Shout out to everybody who sticks around for these super long videos that I record. I think this one's going to be about like 25 minutes when I close out. And shout out to everybody out there who just like loves playing this game with such a great attitude. I love meeting every one of y'all. Definitely come up to me if you see me at an event, and I'd love to just shoot the shit, shoot ideas, bounce back what we got. But yeah, I'll catch you guys next time.